Okay, so in the last video, we got the page just with three regions. We're going to work on the colors now. If you look at the wireframe, we've actually got some colors defined. And we took the trouble to make a sort of lightweight brand guide that shows the actual C3 branded colors. And we've got the dark red, the dark charcoal, a medium charcoal, and a dark blue. So let's actually show you a quick way using CSS Custom Properties. As a way of reference, MDN's an excellent site. I go there like all the time. CSS Custom Properties, you can kind of think of them almost like variables. It's not quite like programming, but what it lets you do is define something and reference it. So for colors, it's an awesome way to do it. Then if you change your mind on a color, you can update it once and it gets put everywhere. As always, when you're checking for using newer features, this isn't that new. Browser support's quite good with it though. For all intents and purposes, we don't really support Internet Explorer anymore, so I'm not even worried about the fact that it doesn't support it. Most of the other browsers are evergreen, meaning that they update frequently. So anything Chromium based, which now Edge is as well, is going to handle it no problem. And Safari also supports it. Opera is actually a pretty good citizen for compatibility, but it just doesn't have a lot of market share. So for all intents and purposes, we're good. We're going to be using the var keyword. So let's use it. Back to our React app. And what we're going to do here, in the app, they give you an index CSS, and this is referenced in your index.js right here. So we can define any sort of global styles that we want there. So let's
You've also got an app.css. What's the difference? We were looking at app.css before.
Oh yeah, so app.css would be styles specific to the app component, right? So every React component can import styles that are local to it. And so whereas if this is going to be used everywhere these CSS custom properties are going to be used everywhere.
Yep.
So we'll do it. Okay, so we want to make some custom properties for the branding. One moment. Oops. So given it a name, let's take the C3 UG dark red. And I'm going to use hex codes. Is that uppercase AD 0B 0B? All right. Life is good. And we'll take C3G dark charcoal.
$262626.
I like grays. You probably know that when you're doing anything in the gray family.
Yeah, you didn't get.
Of course I didn't. 26, 26, 26.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is anytime you're doing a gray, the red, the green, and the blue are the same. So the first two are the red and hex. 00
yeah.
through FF.
You always know you got
26,
gray.
26. So you know you got gray when they're all the same. So that's our dark charcoal. We'll do a medium charcoal. Let me do some copy paste here. And 6s. And one more time, how about C3G dark blue? Okay, I bet you didn't know we had a dark blue. You know where the dark blue came from? The chart. Needed another color for the chart. One that wouldn't fight too hard with the other colors. So it is.
That's 00.
Ah. There we are. All right, so we got some colors to find. What you really want to know is, great, what the heck do I do with them? I'll show you. let's okay, we're not gonna let's get rid of the style on the header here. And if we look at the wireframe, the header's dark red, so let's do that. In app CSS, let's make a class called C3 UG header. And let's say background color. And what we're not going to do is just put the hex code. We're going to grab the CSS custom property name, and we'll use the var keyword. Var, boom. Here we are. Life is good. And then in here, we're going to say header. Let's lose this.
C3 UG header.
Indeed.
And do you want to put the padding in that style too?
Yes.
You've got a curly bracket.
I do have an extra curly. Okay.
Now, what is it not like?
All right, look at that. It's the correct red. We can throw some padding in there, as you mentioned. This isn't going to be the permanent home for it. We're going to be creating its own component, but let's I just say, oh, hot reload. Okay, did you see that? I didn't go and hit refresh in the browser.
Beautiful.
If you're not used to this, this is like, oh, it's amazing because it speeds up development so much. It really does. Okay, and we could do the same thing with the footer, and we shall. So
just copy and paste the whole thing.
Yeah, point taken. Nothing happened because I haven't referenced that style. Graham, did you notice I didn't type class? I typed class name.
Yes, I was going to ask about that actually.
Well, in CSS, we would type class. That's a normal way to do it. But remember,
in Pages, we would type class name.
And you see, this looks a lot like HTML, but it's actually JSX, which is transpiled to JavaScript, and we can't be going and using reserved words like class. So there's a few things in React where it's almost the same, but a little bit different. Class name is one of them, because that wouldn't work in JavaScript. So we'll do class name equals C3UG footer, and the footer, here I'll lose that. Actually, and by the way, this is an object literal. You may know that, I'll fix this and then explain. Footer class name equals, I did the same thing before. There's the curly. Okay. When you're
so the hot reload pulled in the header properties, but we really want it to be the footer. C3UG footer is what the class name should be for the footer.
Correct.
It just happens to be the same. There you go.
So when we passed it an object literal, in CSS, it would be lowercase background hyphen color, like so. When you're making an object to pass to as a style, you do it the JavaScript way. So in JavaScript, if you're programming against the DOM, you can use objects that, okay, casing, this is camelCase, as opposed to PascalCase. CamelCase, lowercase, first letter, uppercase, first letter of each subsequent word. Yep. So you take background color, like so. This is called kebab case. So you kebab case it like a shish kebab. So it's got hyphens in between every word. Go from kebab case into camelCase. All right. That said, what we're now going to want to do is move the header and footer into reusable components. Why? Because every single page we build is going to have the same header and footer, and we don't want to repeat ourselves. So let's do it. Let's make a components folder. Let's make a folder C3UG header. And let's make a file C3UG header.js. Okay. And let's just say const Oops, props. Let's go steal our markup here. Let's do this. Okay, and of course we don't have this class defined. Why? Because app.js pulled it in from app CSS, but C3UG header needs its own. So we're going to make its own style sheet, which we will grab the C3UG header out of app.js. And we want it here, C3. But by the way, file naming, if you were just doing pure JavaScript, like a lot of people like kebab casing for file names, for CSS files, for things. When you're getting into, I think part of the reason that in the React community it's done with, this is PascalCase, so first letter upper. The reason you'd be using PascalCase is because of the transpilation issue. You end up referencing stuff a lot from what really amounts to JavaScript, so it's problematic. So when in Rome, do as the Romans do, even though PascalCase, or sorry, kebab-case feels a little better for file naming. I tend to make my folders, top level folders like components, I'll just do a lowercase. And then the folder to contain a component, I just use the same name as the component. It's just easier. You don't have to make this mental shift between, is it uppercase, is it lowercase, just use the same thing. Okay, so we defined the CSS, we made a style, we didn't reference it yet. Let's go into C3UG header, and we're going to import dot slash let's export our component too. All right, and now we have to reference it. So I'm going to get rid of that style. And in app.js, let's import C3UG header from you can omit the .js when it's a React component. This is just a warning saying it's not used yet. I guarantee it's yeah, defined but never used, so don't worry about that. That'll go away. And then let's be brave, nuke that really quick. It'll compile even though there's a warning. So if you look, our header disappeared, right? Boom, it's back.
3, 2, 1, and it's back. Nice.
Life's good, nice. Right?
Yep.
And let's do the same thing with a footer. So source components. Okay, and we'll make a all right, I'm going to be lazy. Let's this is kind of boilerplate, so let's just copy it and change what's different, right? In the app.js, our footer was that. So we'll throw that in there. Let's change the name of the component, C3UG footer, change it everywhere. Import its own style sheet, not the header one. Okay. And then in C3UG footer, we're also going to need the CSS. So I believe that's also in app CSS. I'll just cut it. C3UG footer, boom, life's good. It's importing it. Okay, in app.js, you'll notice that app.js still has this footer in there. Let's nuke that. Let's import C3UG footer from component C3UG footer, C3UG footer. It's not referenced yet, so it gives me a warning. Let's reference it. Boom. There's our footer.
Nice.
Okay, so we're starting to get somewhere. Now you won't end up with a huge amount of markup, JSX here in the app component. We want to make it nicely split up into separate logical components, and we can move on to building out each of these components, putting real content in them. This is a good segue.
Okay, let's pause here and we'll come back in the next video.